Welcome to Fade to Chat, Golden Age Cinema. In this episode, Cindy and I enter a territory that Hollywood in the 50s. And it was an area that they were barely allowed to touch. There's some interesting things about this film that are connected, and we'll talk about it. It's a story about a child who kills. Now, in the 80s and 90s, there are child who kills movies all over the place. But this was kind of groundbreaking for that reason, not by accident, but through neglect. But the child in this movie has such sociopathic tendencies. It's really quite interesting. It's Mervyn LeRoy's The Bad Seed from 1956. I had never seen this movie before. And in fact, when you suggested it, Cindy, I was thinking Village of the Damned, maybe? The one where the kid's eyes glow. You know, there's a horror science fiction movie. And I thought, I don't know, that stuff never, and I never saw that one either. That stuff never really appeals to me. This was a little bit more. And there was a little bit more of a plot line to it. So it's based on William March's 1954 novel and Maxwell Anderson's hit Broadway adaptation. The film asks the question that remains unsettling today: can evil be inherited? Can a child be born without conscience? And what does a parent do when that seems to happen? So tell us about this film. This is one that you chose.
Yeah, and it's funny. I don't even know how I actually saw this movie to begin with, if it just popped up on my feed, because I didn't go looking for it. Um, it is about a little girl named Rhoda, who, as you said, she definitely has sociopathic tendencies. And she comes across as a picture perfect little girl. She was actually 10 when this movie was made. I don't know if you knew that.
No,
She was
no.
8. She was 8 during the Broadway play, but she was then 10 when the movie was made.
And she was
And
portraying an 8-year-old, I think, in the film in the
yes,
movie. Yeah.
yes. And she came across as this perfect little girl, perfect manners, perfect hair. She kept her room perfect. She curtsied to everyone. She was overly polite, and
Hmm.
everyone thought she was just the perfect child until, although I think her teacher knew. We'll
Yeah.
talk about that more. Her teacher had some suspicions. Um, but there was a class picnic, and this little boy had drowned at the picnic. And when they sent all the children home from the school that day, her mother was very concerned about, how Rhoda would react to this little boy being drowned. And her reaction was not normal. She's like, "Well, I don't feel anything. I thought it was exciting." And of course, that was her mother's first clue that this is not a normal child's reaction. She should be upset. She should be crying. And so the movie goes on, and they find out that this little boy was drowned, and he had won a medal for penmanship. And Rhoda thought she should have won that medal because she had the best handwriting of anyone. And she was very upset that she never got the medal. And so it comes down to finding out some clues. They find the missing penmanship medal in her jewelry box, and the handyman, he suspects her. He kind of knows that there's something off with the little girl. Anyway, throughout the movie, her mother finally discovers that she is not the perfect child she thought she was, and she also discovers that she herself was an adopted child. And so then she's concerned that she's passed this gene onto her child, that she really is, excuse me, that she really is evil. And how is she going to protect her child? What is she going to do about this? Is she going to protect her child um, from
So,
being. Go ahead. Yeah.
so do you believe that evil is inherited?
I believe that this child was born evil.
Okay.
Yes. I don't think her upbringing had anything to do with it because she had a wonderful upbringing,
Hmm.
two loving parents. Um, I don't think they could have done anything different, that she was born that way, and yes, it was inherited in her instance, that it wasn't a product of her upbringing, that she was a bad seed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You and I might disagree on that. Um,
really.
yeah, um, it's hard to determine how much environment can influence this, or can it suppress it in a sense?
You
So
mean
if you're
this particular child or in general?
in general, I'm
Oh, in
speaking in,
general, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, in general.
you know, so that's where I think the the story deviates from what the science might say. That environment can have a big impact on expression of problems with it.
Mm,
You worked as a teacher. I worked with what they refer to as severely emotionally handicapped kids. And so I dealt not with children like this, but children who had some severe emotional handicaps and disorders that probably, if they were adults, would have been diagnosed in ways. But sociopathy was not something I saw. Conduct disorder, but not sociopathy. So I don't know. And you worked as a teacher, and you saw kids that misbehaved.
yeah, and I think that's why I found this movie so interesting,
Mm-hmm.
because I taught that age level, and thank God I never saw that level either in any of my students. Thank God. But I saw varying degrees of children that seemed not to have any sense of right or wrong or remorse, and it was a little unsettling when you would see that.
Yeah.
But again, I knew nothing about the home background or anything, but you could see it in certain kids. It's like, boy, they just have that look, and you just know that they don't get it.
Yeah. I also feel like some of that was more conduct disorder. In order to kind of get to sociopathy, you have to have a level of abstract reasoning that, whereas kids are generally at that age more concrete operational,
Hmm.
in order to be able to piece together, kind of plot intent like it did in this movie,
Hmm.
that requires some abstract reasoning that 8-year olds typically don't have. But I saw some kids who misbehaved. I saw some kids who probably had histories of torturing animals. And those are all kinds of precursors to
Hmm.
what people say are now part of the serial killer lineup. And
Yeah.
actually, I get to teach about serial killers and psychopathology. It's my favorite lecture to
Mm.
give. And then, I
Okay.
have to wait till the middle of the semester because we haven't gotten to psychopathy yet,
Yeah.
and disorders. But students are already asking, when are we doing the serial killer lecture?
Yeah. Well, it is fascinating.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
And I'm glad there was no, when you said about the animals, that would have, I probably would have had to stop watching the movie
Yeah,
if there had been an animal involved. Because there's that one movie, Fatal Attraction.
yeah, where they boil a rabbit.
I can't, can't
Yeah,
deal with that. Mm-mm.
yeah,
That is my, no.
yeah. So she gets the mother, who is
Christine.
Christine, and she's played
Mm-hmm.
by Nancy Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
she starts to see that something's not right with her child. She starts to find evidence, like the little boy who was drowned or who drowned at the picnic. The medal that for penmanship that Rhoda said she wanted winds up in Rhoda's room in a drawer, and the mother finds it, and she starts to piece things together that maybe her child is just not right, just not with it in terms it might have been involved in this loss of life, drowning of the boy at the school picnic. So I haven't given you my verdict on this film yet, so I'm kind of holding
Oh, I
off.
think I know what it is. I think I
Really?
knew before.
It's
I
not.
thought
It's
you
not.
might find it very interesting because
Yeah,
of your background.
yeah, I did.
Okay.
I'm not totally disowning the film. I think one of the problems with it. Well, let's review. Let's talk more about the characters that are involved, and we'll get to the review.
Okay.
So after the mom puts two and two together, the boy had some strange marks on his body that then she realizes are probably the taps. The little things that they put on the bottom of shoes when heels wore up. Did you have that as a
Yeah.
kid?
I did not, but I knew exactly what they were. But they usually were rubber. They weren't metal, but they usually like a little rubber. Yeah, to
No,
make your heels last longer.
yeah, my mother took our shoes to the cobbler,
Yeah.
if you want to call them that. And it was, you walk into the store and there were shoes on racks all the way around that
Yeah.
they were working on. And I had metal pieces
Oh,
put on the heel of my shoe.
okay.
And I didn't get the rubber. They didn't get the rubber ones. I don't know if they didn't have them, but that was a
Yeah.
kind of a familiar thing when she showed them. I'm like, yeah, I hadn't thought about that in years. But
Mm-hmm.
having them, particularly on the heel strike portion of the shoe, to extend the heel strike a little bit longer. But those were it was put together. The mother put together that those were those marks on the child came from her daughter Rhoda's
Yeah.
shoes that Rhoda had kicked him or hurt him or whatever
Yeah.
prior to drowning him. So why don't you pick it up from there?
Well, also, she was always skipping,
Yeah,
and that was very obvious that she had those on her shoes because it made that distinctive noise. And the handyman, LeRoy, he was always going kind of head to head with her, saying, "I know that you're a bad girl and you're smart, but you're not a good person." And they would go head to head with each other. And he said, "I know you did something to that little boy." He said, "I think you hit him." He said, "I think you hit him with a stick." And Rhoda said, "Oh, no, no, I didn't do anything." And then he said, "Well, they're going to find some blood." And that's when her whole facial expression changed. She's like, "What? What do you mean blood?" He said, "Oh, yeah." He said, "You can wash away blood, but you can't wash it all away." And then she started to you could see the wheels in her head kind of turn like, "Oh, maybe I am going to get caught." And that's when she decided that she needed to get rid of him because he was starting to figure out that she really was involved. Um, you want to talk about the shoes and the incinerator at that point? Maybe.
yeah. Just to mention that Leroy was played by a character actor that we've seen around for a while in a
Mm,
lot of other movies, a lot of other shows, Henry Jones. And he had quite a long career in terms of that work. Well, she went to put the shoes in the incinerator,
right.
and LeRoy figures it out. So he goes into the incinerator and takes the shoes out. At which point, later, he winds up being locked in his basement room, and a fire is starting and he can't get out. And, because of code, there's lots of things they couldn't show people running around on flames. And probably because they didn't have the tech back there to do that in the 50s. I don't know, in terms of special effects, they didn't have that, fire gel that they would put on, and fire protectant gel they put on people with that. But all of it was shot from the viewpoint of the mother looking out the window and watching Henry get out of, or LeRoy get out of his apartment and run down the path screaming until he died, or stopped screaming. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and we should mention that before that, Rhoda was going out for ice cream, and she just kind of casually walked by. There's a little container with matches on the table, and she took matches out in her hand, and her mother stopped her and said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "Oh, nothing, nothing." And she said, "Rhoda, we've talked about this, that you're not allowed to have matches." And of course, she had an excuse for that. She said, "Well, I was just going to play jackstraws with it." And she said, "No, put them back." And she put them back, but she didn't put them all back. She kept 3 in her hand. And so then when she went out for ice cream, she actually went out a second time. And that's when she set the Excelsior on fire and locked LeRoy in the basement. And she admitted that to her mother later. She said, "Because LeRoy was going to turn me in." She said he was going to call the police and turn me in about my shoes. So she had to get rid of him.
Yeah. And then I'm trying to find my notes. Christine finds out about her adoption secret. She talks to her father. Her father comes to visit, and she finds out that her mother, she was adopted, and she was adopted from an orphanage, I believe, and the records show that her mother was a serial killer. And so she begins to realize that she's probably passed some of her mother's genetics onto her daughter, and that's why her daughter's behavior is as it is. And there's this long debate about nature-nurture. I'm going to tell you, one of the things that I don't like about this film is there's much more dialogue than what's needed to tell the story.
I do agree with that.
It was taken from a stage play, and one problem is it was taken from a stage play, and they really didn't do much to either extend the stage play, like put in another act of badness, which would have added to the plot or added to the action, but they kept all the dialogue that I had imagined was in the stage play, like this discussion about nature-nurture that goes on in the movie, so it doesn't feel like a movie in a sense. Yeah. If you didn't know it had been a stage play, you would have thought, this movie moves too slow. Why are they talking so much? But I knew going into this that this had been a stage play, so I was a little forgiving on that. But I could see where it was tedious for me to watch it in those parts because I was waiting for the next shoe to drop. We mentioned already, LeRoy finds the evidence of the shoes and such. My favorite character in this whole movie is Mrs. Dangle.
Oh, yeah.
Mrs. Daigle, I guess, is her name.
Daigle, Mrs. Daigle.
Yeah.
Claude's mother.
Claude's mother, the boy's mother, who is drunk in all the scenes. But she added more life to the movie for me. and frankly, the scenes that I was with, oh, the drunk lady's back. But it was like, no, she was more entertaining than anything else that was going in the
Oh yeah,
dialogue.
yeah.
So she comes back for a second visit, and that Christine gets more upset with her second visit. At that point, Rhoda sets the fire in the house, as we mentioned, or in the basement where LeRoy lives. And then Christine makes a really difficult decision that she gets some sleeping pills from Monica. What was Monica's relationship?
She's a landlady.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, she lived
And,
upstairs and she was a landlady. And
yeah,
she thought Rhoda was the perfect little girl, called her a princess, said I wish she was mine.
yeah.
Yeah.
And she was married to Jesse White. Am I right with that? Um,
No,
Jesse
that was her
White.
brother.
Oh, that was her brother.
That was her brother.
Yeah. Jesse White
Yeah.
from the uh, Maytag, the Maytag
Yeah.
repairman commercials.
Yeah. I looked
Uh,
him up. I thought,
yeah, there are
yeah,
quite a few people in here that
yeah.
were familiar from television in the
Mm-hmm.
60s that they went on, and Jesse White with the Maytag repairman piece. But, anyways, her decision, she gets some sleeping pills from Monica, and she decides she's going to overdose her child.
Mm-hmm.
And in overdosing the child, she's reading to her. It's a Rhoda falls asleep, and then she goes into and puts Rhoda to sleep and goes into another room. And I don't think it was on camera, was it? That you hear a shot. You certainly didn't see the
You
shot,
heard
but
the shot. You heard
oh,
the
you heard the
shot.
shot.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Okay,
you
or
heard the shot.
yeah, but you didn't see the obviously you didn't see the
You
shot.
didn't see it. No,
Um,
she had said earlier that her husband kept a locked revolver in their
yeah,
house. Yeah.
and then the
No,
next
they
scene,
didn't show
everybody's
that.
at the hospital,
Hmm.
and they're trying to determine who's going to recover and who's not. I mean, that's sort of the mystery of watching the movie at that point.
Hmm.
And so the gunshot alerted neighbors. Neighbors came and got them both to the hospital. And Rhoda starts asking questions of her dad. Do you think mom's going to survive? And and can I get Monica's pet bird? And it was
Yeah.
now what I saw in this film. I saw in kids who would kind of either steal stuff, other stuff that people had,
Hmm.
or really kind of crave getting that stuff that other people had, but not to kill for it. So
Right.
there's this discussion about the Monica's lovebird and how and if she can get Monica's bird, and he kind of like brushes it off. I see it as I see her decision. Well, it wasn't her decision though. This is where I kind of get plot lost. Rhoda is talking about whether or not her mother will survive. Her mother knows
Hmm.
Rhoda's truth. She's the only one that knows Rhoda's truth.
Hmm.
So her question about her mother is more about, is my mother going to survive and then know,
Yeah.
everybody will know the truth about me and the truth about my mother.
Hmm.
And, finally, Kenneth, after a couple of days, can talk to Christine, and they have a, we'll get through whatever we need to get through here in
Right.
terms of it. Christine recovers, and then you want to talk about I don't worry about spoilers here because people are going to either watch the
Okay.
movie or not watch it. So you want to talk
Sure.
about the end.
Sure. Well, it was Christine was still in the hospital, of course, and her father had just put her to bed, little Rhoda, and that's when he was having the conversation with her about Monica and that bird, and she said she always said, people really like me, don't they? She said, Aunt Monica really likes me. He said, yes. And she said, someday when Aunt Monica is gone or dies, I'm going to get her bird, Sweetsy.
Yeah.
And he said, well, nothing's going to happen to Aunt Monica for a very long time. And she kind of, you could see it again in her eyes. She went, oh. He said, she's going to, she's not going away for a long time. And then she said, well, how long do those lovebirds live? Do they live as long as people? And he said, no, not as long as people. So again, that to me told me that, okay, now she's going to plot something against Aunt Monica. She said they were going to go way up high on the top of the apartment building for a sun bath. She said,
Uh-huh.
we're going way up high where no one can see us.
Yeah.
And I thought, uh-oh, Monica's next. So he puts her to bed, and then he goes into his own bedroom, is lying down. He didn't even get under the covers. He was so, you could tell he was so restless. He was still clothed in his clothing. And a telephone rings, and it's Christine, and she's saying that she's going to be okay, that the doctor said she's going to live. And she said, I did this terrible, terrible thing. I hope you'll forgive me. And he said, yes, whatever it is, we'll work through it. And in the meantime, little Rhoda had peeked into his room to see if he was asleep, and he was. So she gets dressed. I thought it was interesting, too. When she gets out of her bed, she takes her doll, as a creepy doll, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
She takes her doll and puts her doll in the bed in her place and puts the covers up.
The doll sort of looks like her.
Yeah, it's creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she gets dressed and she leaves the house, and there's a big thunderstorm going, of course. And she's dressed in her little raincoat and hat and boots. And she takes a flashlight with her, and she's walking back to the school where the little boy had drowned. Apparently it's close to their home. And she's walking along, and that creepy music is playing too. That song that they played
That she
throughout the
plays
movie.
on the piano throughout the
Yeah.
movie over and over. And it changes pitch, it changes speed,
Yes.
goes into a minor
Yes.
chord version of it,
Hmm.
does all the things to kind of creep you out.
Right. And it's thundering and it's lightning, and she's going along the fence, click, 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 with her little um, flashlight, and she's walking faster and faster and faster. And she gets to the dock where this tragedy occurred, and she takes her flashlight and she's looking down into the water because she's looking for that medal. Because her mother took the medal, and she said, I took the medal and I went to the dock and I dropped it off the end, so nobody would find it in their home, of course, because Rhoda had stolen it from the little boy. And she said, I took that medal and I dropped it into the water. So now here's Rhoda doing her best. She just has to find that medal. And she's taking her flashlight and she's looking down into the water. And they have these, what do you call those, Marty? It was like a basket with where you dip down into the water to catch
Yeah,
fish or whatever. What is that?
they're for nets when you
Yeah, a net.
are fishing, and as the fish gets close
Yeah.
enough, you can reach out with a net and pick it
Yeah.
up. And they're metal poles, generally
Yes.
aluminum, but they're metal
Yeah.
poles.
Yeah. So she grabbed one of those, and again, it's thundering and it's lightning. And this is where, like you said, the child comes in, because an adult would have known better not to do that, but she is a child. So she grabs hold of this metal pole, and she is so desperate to find that metal in the water. And the final scene is she's bent over, looking down into the water with this metal pole with a basket on the end, fishing for this metal. And there's this huge bolt of lightning and crack of thunder, and it hits the pier or the dock where she's standing, and it falls into the water. And so then you
Yep.
assume that it hit her, and that's how she dies.
And do you know why that needed to happen?
Yes.
Why did
Yeah,
that?
because there had to have been some sort of you can't let a girl get away with murder.
Well, it was a
That was the
production code in the 50s
yeah.
that
You
said,
couldn't let her get away with it. There had to be some
yeah, criminals
final.
must be punished.
Hmm.
That was part of the production code at that time. So
Yeah.
it was interesting that they built that, and I doubt that was part of the stage play. I
No.
I would suggest the stage play ends with us. I don't know. I haven't seen the stage play. Ends with us all being creeped out that that child is still alive and is still out there, which
Hmm.
is a good way to end a story, in my opinion. But this, all the evildoers were taken care of, or were
Yeah.
problems were addressed. So
Yeah, I read there were a couple different endings, but that is the one that they had to do for TV,
now,
obviously.
did you watch the movie? I watched it. I bought it on Apple TV. Thank you very much. Um,
I'm
and
sorry.
the,
You'll get me
the
back. Don't worry.
my version has a curtain call on it.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
Okay, so your version had that too, where all of the
Yes.
actors. That felt like a palate cleanser. I
That made me
used
feel better.
Yeah, I used to do some work where people would get into it was group work, and people would get into the position of like the difficult father. I was always
Hmm.
enrolled in this enactment as a difficult father. But an important part of the end of the enactment was everybody had to de-roll. So it was like
Hmm.
I played the part of your difficult father on Marty, and
Right.
then I'd move away from the spot. And it felt, when I
Right.
saw that at the end, it felt like these folks are de-rolling
Hmm.
from their characters.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
apparently,
Because
yeah, go ahead.
go ahead. No, I felt particularly sorry for Christine throughout the movie because you thought she was such a put together mother, had it all. Yes, her husband was going off, in the military, but here she was left alone with this evil child. And her character really unraveled throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Her voice, her voice changed, her appearance changed. And so I was happy to see her at the end. It's like, okay, she is okay. Like
How well, she blew off her jaw or something. I mean, the way they bandaged people up in
they
the
had her all,
50s to show head injury, where
yeah.
they weave the stuff around top as a cap and then under the
Mm,
jaw and stuff.
hmm.
There is a bad science fiction movie, The Brain That Wouldn't Die, and
Haven't seen it.
it's basically, yeah. I'm sure you haven't seen it.
No, I want
Uh,
to see that. Mm-mm.
yeah, it was a takeoff by, I don't know if you ever seen Mystery Science Theater 3000. It's a they take old movies and they riff them. They tell jokes
Mm,
underneath them. But this one had a woman who had his head was severed in a car accident and was the girlfriend of this big surgeon guy, and he was trying to do reattachment, and she was in a pan. The actress was in a pan the whole time talking to him, and
mm.
she had that wrap around her head. So when I saw Christine in the film, I could just think of that. All I could think of was that cheesy movie. And why did they wrap people up like that in the 50s? And The Brain That Didn't Die didn't work out as well at the end as it did for Christine in this movie.
Yeah.
Um, did
I
you?
think if they hadn't done that, I would have really, I mean, this movie was, I don't know, it didn't traumatize me, but it sticks with me.
Yeah.
And maybe, again, because of my educational background, but it really stuck with me more so than some other movies. And so I was glad to see that at the end, especially when she put her over her knee and spanked her. Like, spanked her
Yeah.
really
Yeah,
good.
I forget. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, it's like, okay,
Hmm.
let me show what happens to bad children. They get spanked,
Yeah.
which doesn't play too well in the current
No,
day.
but,
Uh, I got spanked, and it didn't. I actually I
you're
got into
okay, right?
I got into a discussion. Yeah, I'm okay. I got into a discussion with a psychologist friend of mine because we were talking about spanking, and I said I got spanked, and in modern days they would refer to that as being abusive. And he said, "Well, here's the thing. What did it involve?" I said, "It involved my dad taking me into my grandmother's room for some reason, and I knew I was going to get spanked. I knew I was going to get spanked like 3 times, and
Mm-hmm.
I knew that would be the end of it." And he goes,
Right.
"That's why it's spanking. That's why it's discipline and not abuse." Now, I'm not suggesting this as an alternative
Mm-hmm.
for anybody who's listening or watching this, but the comment he made I thought was really interesting. He's like, "You knew what the ritual was. You knew
Right.
that you would get out when the ritual would end. Whereas abuse, you don't know when it's going to happen, and you don't know how long it's going to happen and when it's going to end."
That's true.
So that's how he kind of defined it differently for me, in terms of it. So yeah, at the end, in the as the character actors are being introduced, eventually, Christine or Nancy Kelly uh, looks and then runs over and gets Patty McCormack on the couch and puts
Mm-hmm.
her over a knee and spanks her.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to ask you, what did you? So you had to watch this film again recently. Did
Uh-huh.
I last week? What was the film that we did last week?
Rope.
Rope. I had to watch it again,
Did we do that?
and no,
No, we did it. It happened one night.
it
It
happened
happened
one
one
night.
night.
I had to watch it again, and I saw some cringeworthy things that I had completely forgotten about. That kind of
Mm-hmm.
lowered the movie in my memory in terms of how much I remembered it was a good movie. Did you have any of that with this film?
I wouldn't say I had cringeworthy, but I would agree with you. The dialogue, that discussion between nature and nurture, that just took far too long. And I thought her father, that whole scene with her father was way overdone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Here's the thing that I was aware of in this, knowing that this was a stage play, and I think many of the main characters, Nancy Kelly and Patty McCormack, who played Rhoda, and I'm not sure who else. It might have even been Henry Jones, who played LeRoy, came from the stage play,
Yes.
and that they were used to their performances, and it's something about stage actors learn that you have to be over expressive
Mm-hmm.
because that's the way people in the audience who are sitting far away from you will get it. When
Right.
you're being shot in a close, tight frame, you don't need to be over expressive. And what I
Mm-hmm.
saw in this movie was a lot of overacting.
Oh, yeah. And I read that in all the reviews. And I
Yeah.
would tell you probably my least favorite person in this movie was Monica,
Yeah.
the landlady. She was way over the top,
Yeah.
sing-songy. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that she was in the original screenplay. She and Miss Fern, Joan Croydon, yeah, Leroy, yeah, they
Yeah.
all were.
There are some pictures that I go through and I try to find photos that I can use from the film
Hmm.
to include in the video version of our podcast.
Hmm.
And there are, first of all, a lot of pictures in color or colorized. There were a lot of pictures that, and if I can produce one, I'll produce it and put it up, that I just didn't understand why they did these. I think it was part of the publicity piece for the movie that just didn't make any sense. in the, and I'm trying to do one quickly here and grab it and drop it over here. And why did they do these weird pictures where Rhoda has like lots of lipstick on? She's got full eye makeup and she's crossing her eyes. And I saw.
Doesn't even look real.
I know. And I
No.
saw, if you go through IMDb, you'll see lots of these pictures that are staged and just weird.
It is weird.
So yeah, she actually started her career. I think her career took off. I went and pursued McCormack's, what else she was in. Patty McCormack had a long run as an actress and as a producer. She was known for, even there's a movie that came out in 2012 called The Master. She was on the Ropers for 28 episodes. She was in Frost Nixon. She played Pat Nixon in Frost Nixon, that movie.
That's interesting.
She also was in The Bad Seed Return. She was a psychiatrist, I think, in that movie.
Saw that.
She was in, I didn't see The Bad Seed Returns or The Bad Seed 2, I think. There's a couple of versions of this. There was another version of The Bad Seed that was done, I think, in 2000 or around that. She had a long career, and I'm trying to find, there were some shows like Criminal Minds. She was in 5 episodes of Criminal Minds. She was in 28 episodes of The Ropers. She was in Peck's Bad Girl. She played Tori Peck and was in 14 episodes of that. Yeah, she had a long career beyond this, and sometimes you don't see that with childhood actors, that they don't have that, or they have all sorts of trauma that leads to this. Patty McCormack said she liked this role. She liked playing kind of evil people, which was interesting.
I read that.
Did
she remind you of anyone?
You mean the child?
Her look.
Her look. All I could think of was Wendy from the hamburger place.
Oh, I didn't get that.
With the 2, pigtails.
Yeah.
What did she remind you of someone?
A male version of her to me is Dennis the Menace.
Yeah. Sort of has the same facial features and the same sort of, patterned response to stuff. Like, gee, Mr. Wilson, I'm such a good guy,
Yeah, he was too much.
Yeah. Somebody else I want to bring attention to is Frank Cady, Cady.
Yes.
Played the husband of, played Mr. Daigle.
Mr. Daigle.
Didn't really have a lot of speaking parts. He just showed up with his drunk wife.
To bring her home. Yeah.
To bring her home and to follow her around and such. But you would know him as Sam Drucker.
Yeah.
From Petticoat, from 3 Things. He appeared as Sam Drucker in the Beverly Hillbillies, in Petticoat Junction, and also in Green Acres.
Green Acres. Yeah, you're right.
Law, that was a character that was kind of strung through all of those shows, and he played Sam Drucker, the store owner, in Petticoat Junction, and I don't remember him in Beverly Hillbillies, but I do remember him in Petticoat Junction and in Green Acres.
Yeah, I don't remember Beverly Hillbillies either, but definitely Petticoat Junction and Green
Yeah.
Acres. Yeah.
He was about 10 episodes, I think, in if I remember what I read earlier today.
Hmm.
He was in about 10 episodes of Beverly Hillbillies.
Hmm.
And then Henry Jones, who I've mentioned before, he was in Vertigo, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, The Grifters, 310 to Yuma, the 1957 version of 310 to Yuma. He lived to 1999, from 1912 to 1999, and he had over 200 IMDb actor positions. So familiar face once you see him. You won't actually remember where you saw him from, which is the good sign of a character actor. That he's not tied to a particular part, but he's in Dick
Right.
Tracy, he's in Mr. Belvedere. He has a long IMDb page of fun stuff. Magnum PI, 6 episodes of Gunshy, 13 episodes of Mrs. Columbo. I don't know if you remember that series. Yeah, they tried to gain a little traction with a spin-off on that, and it didn't quite go.
Ah,
So, anyways,
well,
what else do you
back
have?
to
What else do you have on this film?
Jess White. Is it Jess or Jesse White
Jess White.
that played him? Jess
Yeah.
White. Yeah, I
Well,
recognize him as
yeah. I think his
the
name.
Maytag repairman.
Right. I think we know him as Jesse White. I think in
Yeah,
this
they kept saying
film
Jess.
he was billed as Jess White.
Mhm. But I had just watched the movie Harvey. He was in that movie.
Okay. Yeah.
He played Marvin Wilson. He was one of the, not a doctor, but he was at the, uh, but not the, I don't want to call it an insane asylum, but that's what it was, where
Yeah.
they were he was also in It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. And I just watched that recently.
He was in. Where was he in? It's a Mad, 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 Mad World.
I don't have his name written down, but he was in that movie.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna have to look him up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do that movie sometime.
Oh yeah, that's a fun one.
That's a fun movie.
There's a lot of interesting people in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Jonathan Winters. Because I thought, oh my gosh, there's Jonathan Winters.
Yeah.
I recognized him. Um, let
Any
me
other
just
trivia pieces?
look at my notes here. I know that Patty McCormack, she was one of the first. That was one of the first times a child actress was nominated for an Oscar.
Mhm.
Prior to
And
that, it was like Mickey Rooney, Judy Garland.
and she
Um,
didn't win, did she? She was nominated, but I don't think she won.
I don't think she did either.
And I think 2 years later, Patty Duke won it for The Miracle Worker.
Yes, I saw that. Her first name, she took her first name due to Patty McCormack's success.
Yeah, she chose
Patty Duke
Patty
did.
Duke.
She chose her name, yeah. It was listed among the American Film Institute's 2001 list of 400 movies nominated for the top 100 most heart-pounding movies. I don't know about that, heart-pounding. But I went back at some of our other movies the other day and I was reading, there was a comment someone made, when we were watching the movie Rope. I said I did not find it particularly thrilling.
Yeah.
And one of our listeners said, "Oh, really? He thought this was such a suspenseful movie, because there's a dead body in the chest and so on." And I'm like, "Nope, I didn't find that movie suspenseful or chilling at all." Whereas this one was the exact opposite for me. It's like, "Oh my God, what's going to happen next?" I
Yeah,
found this one.
I knew what was
more
going to happen
interesting.
next, having never seen the movie, but I wanted it to happen faster. That was,
Oh, yeah,
and you
yeah,
could say the same thing about Rope for me. I kind of wanted it to happen
yeah.
faster.
I like the character of LeRoy. I thought the interaction with he and Rhoda, their interactions were more interesting to me because he challenged her.
Yeah, yeah. I was spending some time looking in it, and let's give him some credit. And this was the about Rope. The person was at John Romuloidis 7428. Not suspenseful. They were serving food over a trunk with a dead body in it.
I know. Yeah, but the body was already dead, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, yeah. I really do respect that he put that comment in there. And John, if you're listening, I'm glad that you did that. Those kind of things are, and you've got a really good point. You've got a
Yeah,
good point, but to each his own. I guess
right.
maybe I didn't feel it as much as the first time I felt it, but I can't remember how it was the first time I felt it. But this last run through was that. This I was not having seen this movie. I was more curious about how this was going to end,
Hmm.
and in some cases, wishing it would get to the end sooner. And it didn't quite make it to the end soon enough for me. There were
Okay.
some other uh, pieces in here when I looked through who was listed in terms of the cast. Frances Bavier. Uh,
I saw that. Where was
I
she?
couldn't. Well, it says woman at a dinner party, uncredited. But where's Aunt B? I was looking for Aunt B
There
once
was no dinner party. Mm-mm.
once I saw that Shelley Fabre, who you would probably know from Coach and maybe some other shows that she was in. She was also uncredited. There were classmates like Kathy Garver uncredited. Don C. Harvey was the guard in the hospital corridor, which we do see,
Okay.
but he was uncredited. And Edna Holland was the sales lady; she was uncredited. But maybe these were parts that hit the cutting room floor, and why we didn't see it because uh, Aunt B, Frances Bevier, was not at the dinner party. It was only
No.
4 or 5 people. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I just looked him up. Jesse White was the radio tower operator in It's a Mad, 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 Mad World when they were trying to land the plane
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. He's at the air. He's at the airport radio
at the
tower.
airport. Yeah. But no, you're right about those other people because I had read that too, and I thought, oh, I'll have to look for her, but
Yeah.
I sure couldn't find her. No.
Any other thoughts about this film that you want to before we go into what we're going to do next?
Um. Again, I found it. Maybe if you're not dealing with children or don't have children, maybe they wouldn't find it as interesting, and maybe that's part of the appeal for me. Dealing with kids for 30 some years, but I will agree that it was very much read like a stage play. I didn't mind that, with the exception of a few of the actors, but I still thought it was an enjoyable movie to watch.
Yeah, I walked into this thinking this was going to be Village of the Damned. All I remember was kids with glowing eyes, and it wasn't that. It was a different. It was a
No.
different play. Hitchcock was actually offered this and turned it down.
Hmm. And
So,
Bette Davis wanted to
yeah,
play Christine.
oh well,
That would have been interesting.
that would have been even greater overacting than what
Yeah, exactly.
Nancy Kelly.
Exactly.
This was Nancy Kelly's last film. She went and pursued things
Mm-hmm.
in television, but stayed out of films at that point, or that point forward. I've got to say, the more we talk about it, the more I find this film fascinating. After just watching it, it's nice to have this conversation with you about the film because it helps give a little bit more meaning for it. I would say it's not a bad film.
No.
It's for me, it kind of falls into the campy 50s kind of films that you saw in black and white in the 50s. And as far as the storyline, I think it's a strong storyline. For me, the acting, the overacting, and then some of the dialogue, the wordiness of it that was taken from the stage play detracts from it for me. So,
I want to go back to Mrs. Daigle for just a minute
okay.
because you said you liked her so well. Yeah, she had 2 appearances in the movie. I think it was the second time. It doesn't really matter. And she was talking about, she went from one extreme of being so upset and so, you know, obviously upset about her child's death, and then she looked at Miss Fern and she said, she dyes her hair because she was her hairdresser. I don't know if you
Yeah.
caught that or not. She was a
Yeah.
hairdresser by trade. And all of a sudden, it's like that train of thought just switched, and she looked at Miss Fern and said, "Well, she dyes her hair." And then she went right back to talking about the tragedy with her son.
Yeah,
So yeah, her
there was an
performance was
allusion to
great.
that when Miss Daigle said, "You should just come over and I will give you a beauty makeover, and that's what you
Yeah,
need."
yeah,
I think her intent in coming over the second time was to try and trap the little girl into from a
hmm,
lie. And
yeah,
I thought she is a potential future victim of that child.
true.
Yeah.
And did you catch when she was leaving, when Miss Fern was leaving, she turned to Christine and she said, "She'll have to live with that for the rest of her life."
Well, yeah.
And I thought, did she mean Mrs. Daigle or did she
Mm,
mean Rhoda?
yeah.
Could
Yeah.
have been taken either way.
Yeah. Well, again, interesting film. I wouldn't shy people away from seeing it. I got more out of it from our discussion than I would have than I had going into it, and so maybe this discussion will help other folks get interested in seeing the film. And I'm at the point now where I own it, or Apple owns it, and they let me have it for the lifetime. And when I was gonna push the button, I was like, well, maybe I should rent it. I don't know. I watched this film 20 minutes and I shut it off. And then I
Oh,
said, I will come back to this because the first 20 minutes for me were nothing happened. And until there is the storyline where Claude Daigle, the boy, is reported as being drowned, it's like, okay, now things are going to
mm,
start happening.
hmm,
So it takes a while to get to it. Some of that is the dialogue that goes on that
yeah,
is drawn from the stage play, I would assume.
yeah.
So anything else? Any final words? And we'll talk about
I
that. Then
don't
we'll
need
talk.
to watch it again in the near future.
Yeah.
I've watched it enough now, but it's just like some movies you want to watch again and again and again. Just like, we just did It Happened One Night. I probably don't ever need to watch that movie again.
Yeah.
You know, it just was. I just find there's more interesting movies, but this is one, if you haven't seen it, you should watch it at least once.
Yeah. I agree with you on that. One final thing, because it bugged me, because I remember this guy's face. William Hopper, the actor who played Pendrake, the Kenneth Pendrake, the
Oh, the
husband
father.
and the person
Yeah,
in the military. There's quite a bit of
yeah.
reference of post-military stuff that happened in this. And this is post-World War II, they're talking about it. Well, the husband is involved in the military, and he's got this chiseled kind of face that you would recognize. And I just looked it up. He was Paul Drake on Perry Mason. He played the private investigator that Perry Mason used on all of the cases on the 271 episodes of Perry Mason.
Wow.
So, yeah, he was in there. So there's lots of threads on this film for the actors. If you watch it and see it, you'll go, who is that guy? How do I know that guy? Let me find out what that guy is. And you'll go down those paths that we went down. So next episode that we do, next film that we do.
Well, this is one I don't think I've seen, and you've told me it is a musical.
Yeah.
How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying.
Yeah. It is, we had a discussion pre-show. I kind of like musicals. They are palate cleansers for me. They are palate cleansers for me. Okay. And so I'll work and I'll have like this last week, they had 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. Okay, you have to take some of this in the context of like that storyline, when that story happened, that it's much more kind of misogynistic dialogue than what you'd get used to, or what you should expect from the 1950s or 1950s, I think, was when it came out. This film there's a couple of musicals that I like, although they're not really popular, should I say. They're not the My Fair Ladies. They're not the ones that they're not the Barbra Streisand ones and things like that, where people know all of the songs with it. But this one I like, and this is kind of, I'm going to warn you, it's kind of a men's picture, because you're talking about business in the 60s. If Mad Men could sing, the Mad Men show could sing and dance. There's a lot of dancing in this, and a lot of satire in it. And it was a successful Broadway show that occurred in the 60s that Robert Morris, I believe, was the lead in. And he's in the film. So we're seeing another transfer from Broadway to the movie. And he later, interestingly enough, I have not watched Mad Men. I know my daughter loves it, but she texted me and said Robert Morris is playing in Mad Men. So there are some episodes in Mad Men where Robert Morris comes back as the serious old, I guess, owner of the business or somebody from the board. And he actually sings and dances through some of the scenes in Mad Men. It's really kind of fun. You should Google that or YouTube that. Okay. You'll see some of his work in later part of his life. And he has passed on now. But in How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying actually was developed from a book that was a satire on business at the time. And I think I have a copy of it. You can buy versions of it online. And there are a few songs in this movie you might remember. One of them is I Believe in You. And another one is, what's the other one? It's the Elevator song. And you might have seen that come out. There's a lot of fun music in here. This was revived on Broadway with John Larroquette, and I forget who the actor's name. Yeah, he played one of the roles. This is like in the last 10 years. And the guy who played Harry Potter, I can never remember his name, but he played the role that Robert Morris did, but revived it again on Broadway. So it has some staying power. with it, and it'll be interesting to see. But this one and the other one that I confuse it with, because it's another long title, is A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. And that has some music and lyrics that are written by the guy that did Into the Woods, and he did All That Jazz, and he did, well, All That Jazz is kind of a takeoff on his life. Not takeoff on his life, on someone else's. So yeah, I can be a musical nerd. I have a daughter that has grown and now teaches voice, and
Yeah.
so we're constantly, but this one, it'll be interesting for me to see what your reaction is to this. Yeah. It's
And
a
you
bit of a
think I'll just
farce.
be able to find it streaming?
I don't know. Because I own it.
Because
So
I'm still looking for The Heiress, and I cannot find that one yet streaming because I want to do that one sometime. Just
you can
curious
rent or
because
you can on this, because I have it open to the IMDb page now. You can catch it on Pluto TV streaming. You can also
okay,
rent or buy
got
it
that.
on Prime Video, and you can search for it on Amazon. So
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah.
yeah, I have everything through Apple TV because I'll forget if I purchase things on other services. So
Right.
that's what we'll be doing next time: how to succeed in business
Okay.
without really trying. And it's our first foray into musicals. Tried to avoid some of the big ones like Singing in the Rain. We'll deal with those maybe in the future. And we're going to the far end of our timeline when we get to How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. 67 is when that film came out, but the stage play had run for some time before it. So thank you as always, Cindy.
Well, thank you. Thank you
Particularly,
for indulging me.
well, thank you for challenging me with this film, because it gives me another piece of work that I can, notice I said work, piece of work that I
Yeah.
can that I can keep in my head in terms of having seen it. So join us next time on Fade to Chat as we revisit another classic from Hollywood's golden age. Again, How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, where style, story, and the cultural moment collide in ways that still echo today. That's it for this episode, and let's keep the projectors rolling.